War Room Sports, www.warroomsports.com. What? Ain't no more to it.
Welcome to Inside the War Room on War Room Sports TV. I'm your host, Devin McMillan, and I'm here with my homies, Jimmy the Blueprint Williams and B. Austin, the Hot Block Commander. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are going into this week without their superstar quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger. Fellas, Big Ben, you know he's a pretty tough dude, but he had 2 injuries last week. Actually, when he got hurt in the game, all they were concentrating on was his shoulder. They diagnosed him with a sprained shoulder. You heard separated in some circles. But the big injury is a broken rib, which if he plays on it, the rib injury wouldn't get worse, but it could possibly puncture his aorta. And that sounds like some serious stuff. And I think you have to pretty much have something really serious to get Big Ben out of a game. So, Jimmy, what do you think about this whole thing? I mean,
Big first off, shout out to my man Matt Kemp. But you know it's definitely serious if Big Ben is not playing, considering Big Ben is one of the toughest players in the NFL. You know, as we like to call him, Big Ben, a.k.a. don't say nothing, just give it here. I mean, you have to pretty much drag this guy out of the game. So you know it's a serious injury. But when I heard it was like life-threatening, I was like, damn. You know, I had to take a step back because at first I thought it was just his shoulder. You know, I watched the game, saw him go out. I thought it was a shoulder injury. But, you know, I think overall the Steelers will be okay because they are a tough-nosed team. But we'll see what happens. But in order to get Big Ben not to play, this has to be a serious injury.
Right. B. Also, what do you think about the whole thing with the possible puncture of an aorta? How dangerous is that?
Well, first and foremost, it's Foles time on the other side of the state. I think it's major. And personally, like looking at his health, looking at his obviously something that can puncture your heart and take you up out of there to the heavens above is definitely a serious situation. For the organization itself, their defense is playing well. They're running the ball spectacularly through committee. I think that they'll be okay.
They'll be okay. Back to Big Ben just for a minute, because Jimmy talked about how tough the dude is. Usually, to get Ben Roethlisberger to miss a game, you know, they usually have to talk him off of the field. He's played through numerous injuries. You know, I mean, one season, remember he came into the season after a motorcycle accident. The dude was like half retarded, and he still wanted to play. But he said on a scale of 1 to 10, the pain in his rib area was like a 9. So, you know, I don't want to keep harping on this thing, but like when Ben Roethlisberger is complaining that much about pain, you know the injury is legit because he's usually the dude. He's like a it is what it is type of dude, and I'm gonna go out there and play. So, you know, with this said, you know, I'm kind of building that up to say we don't know how long this is going to be, how long this is going to last. So with a schedule left of Baltimore at home, at Cleveland, at Baltimore in 2 weeks, the Chargers, Cowboys, Bengals, and Browns, if he has to sit out for any significant amount of time, do you, Austin, think that this team can make that playoff run without Big Ben and, you know, kind of save the season?
Yes. In a word, yes. I mean, they've demonstrated it in the past. The team hasn't changed its chemistry and its makeup from where it was a few years back when it had to win, 6 out of 7 games to start the season without Ben. No mistake made. Ben Roethlisberger is an elite quarterback, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are an elite organization. And so they really are the sum total of their parts. And when one of those parts goes out, they usually can plug another part in that's probably very good in its role. So they've got Charlie Batch, who's actually now the backup on the depth chart, and Byron Leftwich, who I believe is serviceable enough to make a couple completions on necessary third downs. And, you know, from what I've watched of the Steelers in the last 2 to 3 games, they have really been running the ball with a lot of success via that running back by committee. Dwyer is balling. They're getting Mendenhall back. So I expect, we call him Mendenhall here for a past discretion. But I expect them to not be the same team without Ben, but to still be a very good and very dangerous team without Ben, and allow him to heal and be ready for that playoff run.
Yeah, well, with Baltimore on the schedule, 2 out of the the next 3 games, like you said, I actually think Byron Leftwich is sort of an underrated passer in the league, but his style is very different from Ben Roethlisberger in the fact that he's not mobile at all. So he's not going to move
at all.
He's not going to move the pocket. He's not going to buy time in the pocket. So he's more of a
statue
5-step drop.
He's a tough guy himself, though.
Yeah, he has to just let it go, let it fly. The patterns can't be as long as they usually are. With all that being said, like you said, Mendenhall is coming back, but they are also missing their staple on defense, Troy Polamalu, and
overrated.
One of those receivers on the offensive end, Antonio Brown, is going to be missing as well. So that's one less weapon for Byron Leftwich to work with. Jimmy, with the other injuries, Polamalu and Antonio Brown being the biggest, how do you think Leftwich can fare in 2 games with Baltimore in the next 3 weeks? I don't want to overlook the Browns, but Baltimore is their rival.
Yeah, I think they can make an adjustment because they just have to kind of not change the way they play because they are the Steelers, and traditionally they've been, a team that runs the football and plays strong defense. But
not recently though. Yeah.
Yeah, not recently. They've been letting it air out, but I think they'll go back to playing what we consider Pittsburgh Steeler football, right, and they'll be fine. Baltimore is tough. I don't know if they'll win the division at this point, but they got off to such a good start that they'll go into the playoffs as the wild card. That's my prediction. They still have some players on defense. Mike Tomlin is a good coach. So I think they'll be okay. They'll just kind of change the way they've been playing because, like I said, when Ben got there, they kind of changed the way the Steelers played in general. They air it out. Right. Ben drops back and does his thing, but they'll go back to playing what we consider Pittsburgh Steelers football. Like Austin said, they have a plethora of backs at this point that they're getting production out of. They're going to running back by committee, and they're producing. So. And Leftwich is another tough guy. Remember in college when they had to carry him around, the guy still played? Yeah, I mean, this is, Pittsburgh Steelers. And when you think about them, you think about a tough football team. And Ben Roethlisberger, fits that mold. He's from like the Air McNair, school or whatever. One of those tough-nosed quarterbacks. So I think they'll be fine. Again, like you said, they play the Browns. It's the Ravens games. I don't know about that, but they still have other teams on their schedule which they can win and get into the playoffs.
And that's actually the point that I was about to make. I don't know if it's going to be versus the Ravens. I don't think they can drop both of those games. I think they have to find a way to at least split those 2 games. Of course, if they win them both, then I think they'll be in really good standing. But they do have some teams on their schedule. In the NFL, you can't really look over anybody, but they have teams that they can definitely be competitive with and try to pull those games out. So it sounds like all 3 of us agree that even without Ben Roethlisberger, we think that the team is good enough to come together, probably utilize that running game a little more, and make a run for the playoffs and maybe try to buy time for Ben Roethlisberger until he gets back.
Yeah, the Steelers are the antithesis of the Peyton Manning Colts. The Peyton Manning Colts are based on one offensive player making everyone, or they were, and maybe again actually now with luck, but they're based on one player doing everything, making everyone else better. The Steelers have a very, very, very good football team and happen to have an elite quarterback that puts them over the top in situations where they need him to be elite. But in the middle of the season, regular season football, they're definitely going to split those games, and I give them a possibility of actually winning them both even without Ben. So wow. I don't want to take anything away from their system, their coach, and their team. And Troy Polamalu is overrated.
I don't think that there's a possibility for them to win both of them. I think they were going to be tested very well in both games, even if Roethlisberger was there, because of the new offensive explosion of the Baltimore Ravens, which has been inconsistent, to say the least, in the last few weeks. But the Ravens have some problems of their own on defense, so Byron Leftwich might still be able to exploit it a little bit with, of course, Ray Lewis being gone, Ed Reed just being older, and his body is not as good as his mind at this point. Terrell Suggs has just gotten back off an injury. He had a great first game against the Texans, but the last
he's not as explosive.
Yeah, the last few weeks is not so much, and then Haloti Nada is just not playing like Haloti Nada right now.
They ain't getting nada.
Right. So look, there it is. Seems like we all agree that the Pittsburgh Steelers have the potential to go ahead and make that run without Ben. We wish them luck, but not really because we don't really care. But make sure you watch all of our videos on YouTube. Make sure you comment on the videos. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page as well. That's warroomsportstv.com. So until next time, everybody, don't accept mediocrity and be steadfast in that war against ignorance. Peace.
Wait, it's the war room with 5 nights at the round table. 5 Philly guys diversified and educated.